The room was spinning, but not from the sleeping pills I pretended to swallow. I lay perfectly still in my bed, listening to my husband's voice drift up through the baby monitor I'd forgotten to turn off after we'd discussed converting the spare room. Except David wasn't talking about nursery colors. "The paperwork's ready," he said. His voice carried that confident tone he used to close real estate deals. "Once we get her declared incompetent, Patricia can sign as her sister-in-law with medical power of attorney. The psych evaluation's scheduled for Monday. You're sure the medication cocktail will hold through the assessment?" A woman's voice. Not his sister Patricia. Younger, breathier. "Vanessa, baby, I've been slipping her those benzos for 3 months. Combined with the gaslighting, she'll fail every cognitive test they throw at her. She already thinks she's losing her mind." My heart hammered against my ribs, but I kept my breathing slow and steady. Through the monitor, I heard ice clinking in glasses. They were in my home office, drinking my bourbon and planning my institutionalization. What about her design firm? Patricia's crisp voice joined in. David's sister had always looked at me like I was something she'd scraped off her Louboutins. "The business is worth $3 million, minimum. The client contracts alone. Already handled," David said. "I've been forging her signature on transfer documents for weeks. Once she's declared unfit, I'll have full control. Split 3 ways, just like we agreed. Patricia gets 1/3 for her legal assistance, Vanessa gets 1/3 for putting up with this charade, and I keep the rest. We'll say Elena had a psychotic break. Happens to successful women all the time. Too much pressure, not enough stability." I heard someone's sharp intake of breath. "Maybe Vanessa's. And if she fights it?" "She won't." David's laugh made my skin crawl. "Who's going to believe a woman who can't remember conversations, loses hours of time, and has episodes of paranoia? I've been documenting everything. Her therapist already thinks she's showing signs of early-onset dementia. The therapist he'd insisted I see. The one who kept increasing my anxiety medication. What about those family heirlooms?" Patricia asked. "The jewelry from her grandmother?" "I saw the appraisal. David. That ruby set is worth $90,000. Sold it last month to a private collector in Boston. Got $85,000 for it. She keeps asking about the jewelry box, but I told her she must have moved it during one of her confused episodes. The antique furniture from her mother went to auction. The photo albums, old letters, all that sentimental garbage. I shredded it last week. Can't have her holding on to the past when we're building her a new future in a nice, quiet facility. My grandmother's ruby necklace, my mother's letters, the photo albums with 4 generations of family memories. Gone. All of it. Erased like I was already dead." "The house?" Vanessa asked. "In my name only. I refinanced 6 months ago and had Elena sign the papers when she was too drowsy to read them. She thinks we still have the mortgage we got together. Doesn't realize I've already got a buyer lined up. We closed the day after the competency hearing. I wanted to scream, to run downstairs and claw at his face. But I stayed frozen, my hand gripping the edge of the comforter as their voices continued detailing exactly how they planned to dismantle my entire existence. "When does she take the next dose?" Patricia asked. "In about an hour. She thinks they're vitamins for her memory issues. I'll bring them up with warm milk, tell her it'll help her sleep. By tomorrow morning she'll barely remember her own name." "You're sure this'll work?" Vanessa sounded nervous. "If she figures it out." "She won't." David's voice was flat, certain. "I've been studying her for years. Elena's smart, but she trusts too easily. She actually believes I love her. It's pathetic." The monitor crackled. I heard footsteps, the sound of the office door closing. Silence. I lay there for another 5 minutes, making sure they weren't coming upstairs. Then I carefully reached over and silenced my phone's alarm that would have reminded me to take my vitamins. My hand was shaking. 3 months. He'd been poisoning me for 3 months. I thought about all the times I'd felt foggy, confused. The appointment I'd missed because I couldn't remember the date. The design pitch I'd botched because I couldn't recall the client's requirements. My assistant Emily covering for me, looking worried. The times I'd burst into tears for no reason, wondering if I was having a breakdown. It wasn't me. It was never me. It was him. I pulled out my phone and downloaded the baby monitor's cloud recording. Every word, time-stamped and saved, my hands weren't shaking anymore. If David wanted to see me fight, He was about to get a masterclass. The next morning, I shuffled downstairs in my bathrobe, making sure to bump into the doorframe on my way. David was at the kitchen counter, cutting fresh fruit. The devoted husband routine. "Morning, sweetheart," he said, kissing my cheek. His cologne was different. Expensive. Vanessa's taste, probably. "You look tired." "Rough night?" "I don't remember." I made my voice vague, uncertain. "Did I come downstairs last night? I think I had a dream about, I don't know, something about the office?" His eyes flickered. Calculating. "No, honey. You went to bed at 9. You've been sleeping a lot lately. Maybe we should call Dr. Brennan. Increase your medication." The medication that was destroying my mind. "Maybe," I mumbled. I let him guide me to a chair, watched him pour orange juice I wouldn't drink, and set out 2 white pills next to my plate. "Your vitamins," he said gently. "For your memory." I palmed them while pretending to take a sip of juice, then excused myself to the bathroom and flushed them. I'd been flushing them since I'd overheard last night's conversation. In the bathroom, I pulled out the phone I'd hidden in my robe pocket and texted the only person I could trust, Marcus Chen. We'd gone to college together, and he'd become a detective with the NYPD before moving to private investigation 2 years ago. We'd stayed friends, meeting for coffee every few months. "Need to talk. Urgent. Can't use regular phone. Come to Bennett Park 2 p.m. Come alone." His response was immediate. "On my way." "You okay?" I typed back, "No. But I will be." I spent the morning playing the role David expected. Confused, forgetful, compliant. I asked him twice what day it was. I couldn't find my car keys, which I'd hidden in my own dresser. I started a sentence and trailed off, staring into space. "Maybe you should rest," David suggested, his voice dripping with false concern. "I'll handle the phone calls today. My business phone." He wanted access to my clients. "Okay," I whispered. I went upstairs and climbed into bed, but the moment I heard his car pull out of the driveway, I was up and moving. I had 6 hours before he came back. I tore through the house like a detective, documenting everything. I found the benzos he'd been crushing into my food, hidden in a vitamin bottle in his sock drawer. I photographed them, then took 3 pills and sealed them in a Ziploc bag. Evidence. In his office, I found the forged documents. My signature on papers I'd never seen. Property transfers. Bank accounts I didn't know existed. He'd been siphoning money from my business for 18 months. I found emails between David and Vanessa going back 2 years. She wasn't just his mistress. She was his employee at the real estate development firm, 20 years younger than me, and apparently eager to help destroy my life for a payout. In Patricia's emails, I found the psychiatric evaluation forms already filled out, just waiting for Monday's assessment. They'd paid Dr. Brennan $30,000 to diagnose me with early-onset Alzheimer's. The check cleared last week. By 1 p.m., I had enough evidence to bury all 3 of them. I met Marcus at Bennett Park, choosing a bench far from any cameras or listening ears. He took one look at my face and sat down without a word. I handed him my backup phone with all the recordings, photos, documents. "Someone's trying to kill me," I said. "Not with a weapon. With pills and paperwork and lies. And I need your help to make sure they all go to prison." Marcus listened to the baby monitor recording. I watched his jaw tighten, his detective brain processing every word. When it finished, he looked at me with something between rage and respect. "How long have you been gathering evidence?" 18 hours. "Jesus, Elena. You should go to the police right now." "I will," I said. "But I need everything airtight. These are smart people. David's a successful developer with connections. Patricia's a healthcare attorney. They'll have expensive lawyers. I need to be bulletproof." Marcus nodded slowly. "What do you need from me?" "I need you to find my grandmother's ruby set. David said he sold it to a private collector in Boston. I need it back, Marcus. It's all I have left of her." "I'll find it," he promised. "What else?" "I need a toxicology screen. Hair follicle test, blood work, the full panel. I need proof of what he's been putting in my system. I know a lab. Discreet, fast, court admissible. And I need a lawyer. Someone who specializes in financial fraud and domestic abuse. Someone who won't be impressed by David's charm or Patricia's credentials." Marcus pulled out his phone. "Rebecca Torres. She's a shark. Took down 3 city councilmen last year for real estate fraud. She'll love this case. We spent the next 2 hours planning. Marcus would handle the investigation, track the jewelry, coordinate with the toxicology lab. Rebecca would handle the legal strategy. And I would continue playing the confused, drugged wife until we had everything we needed. How long can you keep up the act? Marcus asked. As long as it takes, I said. They think I'm weak. They think I'm broken. Let them think it. That night, David brought my vitamins with warm milk, just like he'd said on the recording. I took them, pretended to swallow, then palmed them while he watched. There's my good girl, he said, stroking my hair like I was a child. You'll feel better soon. Everything's going to be fine. I let my eyes drift closed, my breathing even out. Through my lashes, I watched him leave, pulling out his phone the moment he thought I was asleep. The next 3 days were the longest of my life. I stumbled through the house, carefully orchestrating moments of confusion while David documented each one. He'd pull out his phone to film me forgetting where I'd put my coffee cup, asking what day it was, struggling to remember a client's name. This is getting worse, he told Patricia over the phone, not knowing I was listening from the top of the stairs. The evaluation on Monday is going to be a slam dunk. Meanwhile, Marcus was working. He tracked the ruby set to a collector in Beacon Hill who confirmed the sale, gave a full statement, and agreed to testify. The toxicology results came back showing high levels of lorazepam and alprazolam in my system, enough to cause cognitive impairment, memory loss, and confusion. Rebecca Torres reviewed all the evidence and smiled like a predator scenting blood. We've got him, she said when we met in her office late Friday night. We've got all of them. But we need to catch them in the act. I want them on record trying to execute this plan. The evaluation is Monday at 10 a.m., I said. Dr. Brennan's office. Then Monday is when we move, Rebecca decided. You'll wear a wire. You'll go to that evaluation, and when they try to have you declared incompetent based on fraudulent medical evidence, we'll have the police waiting. Sunday night, David brought my pills as usual. I palmed them as usual. But this time, when he left the room, I heard him on the phone with Vanessa. Tomorrow, he said. By tomorrow night, it'll all be over. We'll have her in Hillcrest Behavioral by Wednesday. 6 months from now, no one will even remember Elena Whitmore existed. I remembered the baby monitor recording. The way they'd laughed about erasing my past. I thought about my grandmother, who'd fled Ukraine with nothing but that ruby necklace sewn into her coat lining. Who'd built a life from nothing and passed that strength down to me. They hadn't erased me. They'd just made me stronger. Monday morning, I dressed in the soft, loose clothes David had laid out for me. The wire Rebecca had given me was smaller than a button, sewn into the seam of my cardigan. Marcus was in a van 2 blocks away with recording equipment. Rebecca was coordinating with the DA's office and 2 NYPD detectives. David drove me to Dr. Brennan's office, keeping up a steady stream of concerned husband patter. It's going to be okay, sweetheart. Dr. Brennan just wants to run some tests. Make sure you're getting the right treatment. There's no shame in needing help. I nodded, playing my part. In the waiting room, Patricia was already there. She barely looked at me, her attention on her phone. Vanessa had the decency to stay away, but I knew she was waiting for the results. Dr. Brennan called me back. David tried to follow, but the doctor stopped him. I need to evaluate Elena alone first, he said. Standard protocol. In the examination room, Dr. Brennan ran through cognitive tests I could have passed in my sleep. Memory recall, pattern recognition, spatial reasoning. I deliberately fumbled some answers, gave vague responses to others but not too many. I needed him to go through with the fraudulent diagnosis, but I also needed any real doctor reviewing this later to see it was impossible I had dementia. I'm going to recommend immediate psychiatric care, Dr. Brennan said after 20 minutes. A facility where you can get intensive treatment. What's wrong with me? I asked, letting my voice shake. We'll discuss that with your husband, he said, dismissing me like I was already incompetent to understand my own diagnosis. David and Patricia joined us in the office. Dr. Brennan laid out forms declaring me incapable of managing my own affairs, recommending immediate institutionalization, granting David full power of attorney. This is all very sudden, I said softly. I don't understand. It's for the best, Elena, Patricia said, not even trying to sound sympathetic. You need professional help. David reached over to pat my hand. We'll get you the best care. Sweetheart. Don't worry about the business, the house, any of it. I'll handle everything. I bet he would. Where do I sign? I asked. The door opened. Detective Sarah Kim from the NYPD walked in, followed by her partner, Detective James Okoye, and Rebecca Torres. Nobody signs anything, Rebecca said. Dr. Brennan, David Whitmore, Patricia Whitmore, you're all under arrest. The color drained from David's face. Patricia stood up so fast her chair fell over. This is outrageous, she started. On what charges? For you, conspiracy to commit fraud, abuse of power of attorney, and elder abuse, Detective Kim said, handcuffing Patricia. Though we'll probably add more as we go. Elder abuse. Patricia sputtered. She's 41. Vulnerable adult statute applies to anyone being systematically incapacitated, Rebecca said smoothly. Which brings us to you, David Whitmore. You're under arrest for attempted false imprisonment, conspiracy to commit fraud, forgery, identity theft, financial exploitation, and poisoning with intent to cause bodily harm. David's eyes found mine. I watched the realization dawn, watched him understand that I'd known, that I'd been awake this whole time. You, he breathed. You were faking. No, I said, standing up. My voice was steady, clear, nothing like the confused whisper I'd been using for days. I was surviving. There's a difference. Dr. Brennan tried to run. He made it 3 steps before Detective Okoye had him in cuffs. The recording of you accepting a $30,000 bribe to falsify a psychiatric diagnosis is going to look great in court, Rebecca told him. The medical board is going to have a field day. Marcus appeared in the doorway, holding up a manila envelope. Toxicology results. Hair follicle test showing 3 months of systematic poisoning with benzodiazepines. Plus the pills we found in your house, David, with Elena's prescribed bottle labels but filled with lorazepam. You can't prove anything, David said, but his voice lacked conviction. Baby monitor recording, time-stamped and authenticated, Rebecca counted off on her fingers. Forged documents with provable signature analysis. Bank records showing embezzlement. Emails between you and Vanessa Chen detailing the entire plot. Patricia's communications with Dr. Brennan. And my personal favorite, video footage from your own phone of you filming Elena's confused episodes that you created by drugging her. She smiled. You documented your own crime, David. You handed us everything we needed. They led him away in handcuffs. Patricia was screaming about her law license. Dr. Brennan was crying. I stood in that office, watching them go, and felt absolutely nothing. Rebecca touched my arm. Detective Kim is bringing in Vanessa Chen for questioning. She'll be charged as an accomplice. This was conspiracy, Elena. All 3 of them are going down. 2 months later, I sat in a courtroom and watched justice unfold. David pleaded guilty to avoid trial, but the DA wasn't in a generous mood. 12 years for attempted false imprisonment, fraud, forgery, and poisoning with intent to cause great bodily harm. No possibility of parole for 8 years. Patricia lost her law license and got 6 years for conspiracy to commit fraud and abuse of power of attorney. Dr. Brennan got 10 years and permanent revocation of his medical license. Vanessa Chen, who tried to claim she was just following David's lead, got 4 years when the emails proved she'd actively participated in planning my institutionalization and helped forge documents. The judge had been particularly harsh during sentencing. You conspired to rob a woman of her freedom, her sanity, her life's work, and her identity, he said, looking at David. You systematically poisoned her, gaslit her, and attempted to have her permanently institutionalized based on fraudulent medical evidence. The cruelty and premeditation involved in this crime is staggering. I got my business back, my house back, and $3 million in restitution from David's seized assets. Patricia's assets were frozen to pay civil judgments. But the thing I treasured most was in a small velvet box in my purse. Marcus had found the ruby set. He'd convinced the collector it was stolen property, got law enforcement involved, and had it returned. My grandmother's necklace, the one she'd carried across an ocean, the one my mother had worn on her wedding day, was back where it belonged. The photo albums were gone. The letters were shredded. But I'd found something better. Digital files on an old laptop in my mother's storage unit. Hundreds of photos I'd forgotten about, scanned and saved years ago. Not everything was lost. I stood outside the courthouse, feeling the spring sun on my face. Marcus and Rebecca stood with me. "What now?" Marcus asked. I thought about that. About the business I'd built back up with Emily's help. About the support group I'd started for other women who'd been gaslit and abused. About the testimony I'd given to the state legislature about closing loopholes in power of attorney laws. "Now," I said, "I live." Rebecca smiled. "Damn right you do." 3 years later, my design firm had doubled in size. I'd hired 4 new designers, all women who'd survived some version of what I'd been through. We specialized in redesigning homes for domestic abuse survivors, creating spaces that felt safe and new. I never remarried. Didn't want to. But I dated sometimes, carefully, with my eyes wide open. The ruby necklace sat in a safe deposit box, with me as the only person on the access list. Once a year, on my grandmother's birthday, I'd take it out and wear it. A reminder that survival runs in my blood. David wrote me letters from prison for the first year. Apologies, excuses, please. I returned every single one unopened. Marcus handled getting the restraining order extended. Patricia never contacted me. Last I heard, she was working as a paralegal in New Jersey, her law career destroyed. Vanessa got out after serving 3 years. She left New York. I didn't care where she went. But the person I thought about most was Dr. Brennan. The man who'd sold his ethics for $30,000, who'd been willing to destroy a life to pad his bank account. He'd get out in 6 more years. I'd made sure the medical board knew exactly what he'd done. He'd never practice again. Sometimes, late at night, I still thought about that baby monitor recording. The casual way they'd discussed erasing my existence. The laughter when David talked about me believing he loved me. I'd learned something important. Trust isn't weakness. But verification isn't paranoia either. I'd also learned that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is pretend to be weak. To lie still, to listen, to gather your evidence, and to strike when they think you're already defeated. My grandmother had taught me that, even if she never said it out loud. She'd survived by being smarter than the people who wanted to destroy her. She'd carried her treasures hidden in a coat lining and built an empire from nothing. I'd done the same thing. Just with different tools. The ruby necklace caught the light as I fastened it around my neck for her birthday. In the mirror, I looked like her. Same determined jaw. Same eyes that had seen betrayal and refused to break. "Thank you," I whispered to her memory. "For teaching me how to survive." Outside my window, New York City hummed with life. My life. The one I'd fought to keep. And somewhere in a prison upstate, David Whitmore was learning that underestimating a woman is the fastest way to lose everything. I smiled at my reflection and went to meet Emily for dinner. We had new clients to discuss, a charity gala to plan, and an entire future to build. The past was done. Justice was served. And I was finally, truly free.